Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to another episode of Higurashi, Kageboushi, or something like that. Last time was like some Akasaka backstory, how he got together with Oishi, They're on the trail, they're sensing some sussy shit happening with the Hinamizawa disaster, so now with the ultimate team up, they're investigating. And now apparently it's Wednesday, June 29th, 1983. I don't remember dates. Um, if is this going back farther or is this like another thing? I don't know. Let's just start. Whatever. It's Tomura. Minai. What the? It's Madota. She's memeing. You didn't even give him time to leave the message. Madoka Minai responded in a teasing tone and raised the volume on the car stereo, acting as though she didn't hear anything. Based? Of course the receiver was still turned off, so the person on the other end didn't hear anything. Oh, I thought she actually said it. Never mind, not based. Even though she was infamous for her non-exemplary work ethic, Madoka wasn't so arrogant as to talk down to her superior back at the transportation division. The Getty Madoka backstory? It had been an hour since returning from patrol in Hoki? I can't say that. Hotui? Probably not. Anyways, H City. And that was the fifth call now. Even though it's easy to avoid responding the first time, that couldn't go on forever. While sighing, Madoka took off her police hat and tossed it to the passenger seat. Since the signal at the intersection ahead was red, she pulled her small patrol car up to the edge of the road and came to a stop. And then she tilted the rear view mirror and began to straighten out her messy hair. Madoka realized that tomorrow is payday and she would be able to pay a visit to the hair salon. While thinking that, she pulled the notebook from her breast pocket and opened it to find the reward cards held inside. If she paid one more visit, she'd receive a free shampoo. Hype! She was planning to hold off until she did get a free hand cream, but she did just run out at home and it would be convenient. So she can hodl a couple more visits to get both a shampoo or a hand cream, or is it just if you wait longer, you get a hand cream instead of the shampoo? I mean, to be fair, hand creams are pretty expensive. I don't know, Madoka. It's a tough call. Thinking about shampoo brought back sour memories. A recent fight with her began because of shampoo. Tomoe? Saturday last month, while they were on the night shift together, Madoka thought to take a shower but noticed she was out of shampoo, so she went to borrow some from the first division. Shampoo was inexpensive, so of course she would be willing to share. All Madoka had to do was take it without a word, but then she had to go and open her big mouth. Oh no, don't shit on her shampoo, man. What brand is it? Listen. Conditioner's important, but honestly, if you're asking me, what do I do if I'm shampooing? I usually just have the mix of shampoo and conditioner mixed in. And if I'm not shampooing, you just put pure conditioner, okay? I don't know. I don't know how important it is, man. I don't care about my hair. She's on the grind. I respect it, honestly. Even though Madoka just meant for it to be a little joke, she must have thought that she was sticking her nose where it didn't belong, and when it was quite uncalled for. I mean, it's a jab, but it kind of hit hard. Thinking that she got in a bad mood and made a sarcastic retort, which irritated Madoka and resulted in her slinging back some insults of her own. In the end, the two of them stormed off in anger and hadn't spoken to each other since. Never talked about shampoo with other people. New rule just dropped. Madoka was certainly the cause of the problem, but she should have been... Skip me? But she should have been old enough to get over it. I mean, maybe true, but like she said, you're the cause of the problem, so you definitely have more blame on it. Actually, she was always like this. She acts calm and intelligent, but in reality, she can be very emotional and hates when her interests and values are pushed outside of her comfort zone. That's why she still couldn't accept the man Madoka chose to marry. Ultimately, she declared if the two of you get together, I'll disown you as a sister. I mean, it is a really weird situation, man. I don't know. I'm not waiting on this shit. Madoka attempted to persuade her on 19 separate occasions, but she got shot down every time. You know what they say, 20. Lucky number 20, right? Though, their relationship wasn't as broken as it was before, so at least progress was being made. As she was thinking that, she noticed the light turning green. Madoka sat down on her notebook, fixed the rearview mirror, and stepped on the accelerator. As she crossed the intersection, she noticed a sports car approaching from behind the next lane over. And it quickly overtook Madoka's patrol car, traveling just barely at the speed limit. What do you mean? It's barely at the speed limit. That's great, man. It's at the speed limit. She stopped to think for a second. When she glanced over, it looked like the driver wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Okay, now you get him. That's life in prison, honestly. Though it wasn't a legal violation at the moment, wouldn't it be an officer's duty to stop the car and give them a warning? Dude, who doesn't wear a seatbelt anymore? I feel like maybe as as a 10-year-old or as a young kid, you're like, seatbelts are for losers. But I don't know, man. I value the seatbelt pretty early in my life. I'm like, yeah, that shit's like, maybe it can be a little uncomfortable, but it's usually just fine. Madoka lifted her foot from the accelerator and let the car gradually lose speed. I'm just saying, Madoka, if that person ends up dead from a car accident, mind you, not just from anything. You know, maybe if you stopped him and gave him a warning about not wearing a seatbelt, he might have been alive. That's all I'm saying. The patrol car could catch up over a long enough distance, but her pursuit would cause trouble. Plus, the way the car was driving was clearly intending to provoke police vehicles. Excuse me. If a patrol car got tangled up with someone like that, the odds were even higher that it would lead to trouble. Is that... You think that's the case? I don't know if... Is there a way to drive that intended to provoke police vehicles? I feel like that's just a stretch. Maybe he's just an asshole. Maybe you could say him being an asshole leads to provoking police vehicles, but I don't think his intention is, oh, you know what, today I'm gonna drive to provoke police vehicles. He's probably just like an asshole. Anyways. In fact, a couple of days ago, one of her colleagues engaged a driver who committed a parking violation, but the driver screamed at the officer, who eventually came back crying? Oh, well, gotta get your emotions in check for that. I know it can be a stressful job, but as long as you didn't cry during the thingy. Female police officers are especially enticing targets for thugs and dissidents. That's probably true, actually. No matter how they did social justice, there's always injustice that stood out of reach of that power. Madoka shrugged her shoulders with a bitter smile on her face. It went without saying that it was directed at her, who had been given a reprimand just last month for pursuing a suspect across prefectural borders. That's based. I respect that. I mean, I'm just saying. Who am I going to tell Madoka Tomoe? I'm going to tell Tomoe if I'm in trouble. It was a really unfortunate incident. They were actively pursuing the culprit, but they had already identified both the model and the plate number of the vehicle, so they should have relayed the information to the neighboring police in Sawaguchi Station and left it to them. They actually referenced this in the Summit Tsubushi arc at the very first chapter. That's why they're kind of hesitant when they found Crispy Takano. No, was it Crispy Takano? I think it was Crispy Takano. And they're like, oh, remember that incident before? They're still kind of on edge. We should just leave it. I think. The perpetrator was just a single offender petty thief. It was a sudden and insignificant crime. It had ended up becoming a much bigger deal than it needed to be. Nevertheless, she crossed the border without permission in the heat of the pursuit and was reprimanded for it, and it ended up adding an unnecessary blemish to a promising career. Even though she would have received no complaints if she just acted within her jurisdiction. It's called a overwhelming sense of justice, okay? She's not on the grind. Well, I just said she was on the grind with the shampoo. It's a different kind of grind, okay? There's financial grind and the justice grind. She's on both. But the justice grind over financial grind, maybe? Madoka suddenly sighed. From her perspective, she was just squandering her talents and efforts, while spinning her wheels way too hard. However, if their positions were reversed, if Madoka were in her shoes, she'd probably leave the field work to others and spend almost every day of her tenure making the rounds and greeting others so the bidwoods would remember her. And, I don't even hate Madoka for that. That's also on the grind. That's climbing. That's a great way to climb the ladder. Despite being a local police officer, Tomoe's excellent results got her adopted as an executive candidate by the main headquarters of the National Police Agency. It put her on the elite course of the so-called recommended group. After all, she was an elite officer who rose above the most difficult portions of the National Police exam, and that brought in a lot of attention. Plus, she was a woman, so letting her supported the government gender equality movement. It even got coverage in the newspaper. So if she took advantage of all that, she would reach a rank and position higher than her late father, and she would be guaranteed a long and prosperous future. At least she should have. Even so, she thrust her neck into all sorts of crime scenes and worked tirelessly all night, without ever taking days off. Madoka thought back. Her father definitely wasn't the sort of person who cared about rewards. If he saw a person in trouble, he'd break his bones trying to help, even when he wasn't on duty. And from time to time, he'd go through some incidents that didn't seem worth it. Madoka certainly respected her father, but all the same, always watching him run off and leave the family behind, sometimes it hurts. As if the helpless strangers were more important than his own family, it's impossible to avoid seeing it that way. Unlike her and her father, Madoka was invited to take the recruitment exam and just ended up with the job. That's all it really was to her. That's why she couldn't emulate their enthusiasm. Looking at it from their point of view didn't change anything. While lost in thought, Madoka could hear the voice over the radio repeatedly saying, "Please respond." Even so, they probably gave up after around a dozen times this time as well, and unsurprisingly, the radio went quiet a few minutes later. And then a sigh came out. Since she didn't respond after the fourth attempt, they would likely send someone else instead. But Madoka was sure Chief Kamuro was trying to send her to go pick her up. Well, she was still in a bad mood from their earlier quarrel, so Chief Yamoti had probably asked him to set this up to give them a chance to meet up. Aww. But only today she was thankful for that sentiment, even though she also thought it was stupid. She scratched at her hair, she just straightened out her frustration. Madoka was feeling particularly tired. Today, not only did she lead the parking violation crackdown this morning, but she also gave a traffic safety class at an elementary school, filling in for a junior officer who couldn't make it due to sudden illness, and she just got back from that. Speaking to a huge crowd of children, telling them the rules of the road, and explaining why they matter. It can be difficult to get through to some of the unruly children with words alone. It took a lot of care and attention to keep the conversation funny and interesting so they wouldn't get bored. It was really hard work. Besides, no matter how hard you try to teach them, there's always at least one person who will rebound once they get through their driver's license exam, like that idiot driver earlier. Holding in the frustration and emptiness and continuing a speech for over 3 hours, including the rehearsal, would be exhausting for anyone. Besides, being told to make up with her in this totally exhausted state went beyond a joke and sounded like nothing but harassment to Madoka. She would be in a bad mood the moment she opened her mouth, and it would be difficult to get an apology out. It was readily apparent that she just fired barbs and sarcasm, souring things even more. The communication light lit up once again. Is it gonna be another go pick her up message? Madoka predicted so because it rang 5 times with the same intervals. And then she put her hand on the dial, intending to reduce the voice volume even lower. But just then... Oishi! Hearing a familiar voice, Madoka turned the dial back to full volume, and then she focused her ears trying to identify the person calling out to her. I mean, his voice is so... Just the cadence is so familiar. Distinct, I should say. No doubt, Madoka quickly parked the patrol car on the side of the road and picked up the receiver. Kura-chan. Oh, man. It's true. Oishi the bridge fixer. Oh. Madoka suddenly raised her voice as she gave a vague answer. Then she switched off the car's stereo and took a deep breath to calm herself before picking up the receiver again.
ずっと誰も出なかったじゃない。私、まさかってすんごく心配したのよ。
すみませんね。ちょっとごたごたした関係で電話回線がまだ復旧していないんですよ。もっと早く連絡しようと思ってたんですけどね。
だからって、もう。
Surprised by that answer, she breathed a sigh of relief. She was happy to finally get an explanation after struggling to get her a reply up until now.
でも無事だったんだね。よかった。テレビでも沖宮の町、ひどい状態だって言ってたから。
いやいや、まあ正確には災害起こったのってお隣の平見沢村なんですけどね。ひどい状態ってのはその通りです。連絡をくれてどうも申し訳ない。
His voice sounded mocking, cunning, and insolent. Still, Madoka knew Kuro-chan before she even became a police officer, so she could tell when he was being serious. She had a rather lengthy history with Oishi. Madoka first met him while she was working at a hostess bar. He was a regular customer. My man. Was it at the Blue Mermaid? Probably not. Her first impression was that he was a goofy old man, but it turned out that he was a detective and an acquaintance of her father's, so eventually they got to speaking even when she was off work. Plus, he had apparently taken care of her older sister a few times before, so by now he became a close friend who she could place her trust in. Madoka responded to Oishi while thinking about the identity of the person who interrupted on the radio. Newts. That was a nuke. The roar of the engine resonated as an airplane flew across the sky at dusk. She caught a glimpse of an unfamiliar logo on the plane's tailwind. Sorry, that's Swoop Airlines, the best airline, because their planes are all pink, and everything inside is pink. She did briefly see characters that looked like kanji, so she assumed it must have belonged to that new Chinese airline. She thought the name might have been First Chinese Air, but she couldn't recall. No, it's Swoop. Tomoe quietly muttered at that thought while watching the wings fly off into the twilight sky. When she was young, she always used Tokyo Airport for traveling abroad. But now they decided to make an international airport here in response to the internationalization trend that came through Osaka and Fukuoka. So the Chubu region became a major travel hub with many planes departing and arriving here. They've hit their capacity limit, and supposedly there were talks in Congress to relocate to a new international airport in the near future. Still, it was an indispensable gateway for the distribution of people and goods at the moment. And the terminal building off in the distance was bustling with a large crowd of tourists and businessmen. Her reasons was simply because she enjoyed traveling by airplane. She later set her sights on becoming a florist, then an athlete. Police officers and detectives would drop near the bottom of her list of future dreams. Tomoe imagined the face of her father as she gazed down the runway. Tomoe's father, Yusuke Minai. He was strict and quiet, but at the same time he was gentle and had a strong sense of justice. And he was the sort of policeman that Tomoe was proud of. She barely spoke to him about his work, but when she spoke with her father's colleagues and superiors, they all had nothing but praise for him. When she saw the sheer number of people crying at her father's funeral, she understood they hadn't simply been flattering her. And at the same time, it made his departure all the more heartbreaking. Nevertheless, Tomoe didn't even learn that her father was a member of the Metropolitan Police Department, and she was accepted into the recommendation group by the National Police Agency, working with elite officers and investigating national cases in the name of public safety. According to a colleague of her father's, she was secretly investigating a certain incident, and he died at home in a fire the day before the conference where he was supposed to report his findings. Yeah, that's not sus at all. When Tomoe learned that fact, she was shocked she couldn't speak for a while. 12 years ago. A fire burned Tomoe's home to the ground, and both her parents were unable to escape. The cause of the fire was suspicious and was eventually ruled arson, but the culprit was never caught. Her happy days were destroyed in a moment, embraced the Rena. Her cherished memories were reduced to ashes. Firefighters were able to rescue Tomoe and her sister Madoka from the second floor, and the two of them only suffered minor burns. However, Madoka remained hospitalized for a while afterwards. Not due to the effects of the fire, but from the shock of seeing her parents' burnt corpses firsthand. Tiny Madoka. That voice sounds so familiar. Oh wait, that was Tiny Madoka. That was Tomoe. Maybe it's just honestly, it's probably just their voice actors playing small voices. That's how it usually is. Tomoe herself also became overwhelmed by the moment she saw them. She began vomiting and her eyesight began to fog over. But Madoka was just a junior high school student at the time and far too mentally fragile to handle such a dark experience. And it took an entire year before her psyche was able to fully recover. I mean, that's totally reasonable, man. Can't even imagine it, to be honest. Even after Madoka's recovery, she continued to suffer heavy anxiety, especially when she was around 5. Not only that... Oh, I think hold on. Okay, we're back. I activated something on my Bluetooth headset and my voice was echoing inside my headset and I was like, what the fuck's going on? But I fixed it. Anyways, not only that, she felt lost around her new younger classmates, and her good grades at the beginning of the school year gradually dwindled. She also skipped school frequently and hung with the bad crowd. Tomoe couldn't count the number of times they fought over that. She was going down the dark path to a hostess. I'm joking. Meanwhile, Tomoe entered the law department at a national university and had such excellent results that she received a scholarship. As a result, the difference between the two sisters grew larger, and Madoka's feeling of inadequacy drove the two farther and farther apart. Their relationship became as cold as ice, until they met again a few years ago. They were as distant as strangers. Perhaps because of those differences in opinions when Madoka introduced Tomoe to her fiancé, she was fiercely opposed to the marriage, and she hasn't relented in that stance even now. It was the same with their fight over the shampoo last month. She couldn't even tell if Madoka was only joking around or being serious, so instead of just laughing it off, she instinctively resorted to vitriolic remarks, even though they traded barbs like that all the time back when they lived together. Breathing a heavy sigh, Tomoe dropped her eyes to the file in her hands and opened it. It contained old notebook pages, individually wrapped in polyethylene storage bags. She accidentally found it in the storeroom of her house at the scene of the accident. It was the only thing her father left her. She opened the file and looked down. The notes she discovered that day were deteriorating from 12 years of age, and had been transferred to a file for preservation. A memo was scribbled in the last page of the note, surrounded by a big circle. Kageboushi Airport, June, Wednesday, go. That part was drawn larger than all the other text. Yo, CG me. We're eating good tonight with a thumbnail. Kageboushi Airport was a bit far from the city center. She had traveled with her family many times, but never to this airport. Yet, her father was definitely visiting this airport several days before the accident. Plus, they had no relatives in this area, so he had no reason to visit here unless it was related to the case. 12 years later, she still didn't know. She wanted to hear the answer. What was he pursuing? What was he trying to find here, or did he find it? She didn't know. She just couldn't understand it. Yo, Madoka reveal! Okay, first Madoka reveal just dropped. I don't know how I feel about that hair, man. But she did say she was gonna get a haircut, right? Anyways. Madoka just dropped? Ooh. Wait a minute, that's also pretty good. Surprised Madoka face. Yo. Okay, it actually looks way better in sprite form, huh? I don't know, her hair looked just kind of stuffed in the CG, but she looks way better. And the little mole. Tomoe turned back toward the voice from behind. Madoka was standing there brushing the hair from her face. See, look at that. It looks like a fucking block. Someone put a helmet on her head. After hearing that, what she came for, Tomoe carefully turned back. She could hear a small sigh from Madoka behind her. Seriously, it's astonishing just how diligent she is, Madoka thought. Her sister Tomoe had been visiting Kageboushi Airport on every Wednesday in June since she discovered her father's old belongings. Even before she was transferred to Kageboushi, even back in Ibaraki, every time, even when she was a student with limited funds for living and traveling expenses. What the heck? I mean, this is not like a bad assumption. She was astounded by the stupidity of it all. Of her boyfriend, that is. Never mind, based. She couldn't imagine her older sister ever cheating, so they were idiots if they couldn't see that either. In Madoka's opinion, that would automatically disqualify them as boyfriends. Madoka took several more deep breaths, then calmly walked up to Tomoe. I do like Madoka's drip. Obviously, it's more normal police person, but the belt, how loose the shirt looks. It's kind of popping off. But only a heavy silence blew over. Regardless, things wouldn't start until someone said something. Feeling no choice but to break the ice, Madoka turned to face her, but at that moment... Surprise Madoka? Surprisingly, Tomoe was the first to apologize. Smud Madoka? How strange. Feeling slightly confused, Madoka examined her sister's face to make sure her complexion was normal. Maybe it was a trick of the setting sun, but she didn't look very lively. Of course not, Madoka thought. From the start, Tomoe was the one who... Well, Madoka said she was avoiding Tomoe until she didn't want to deal with her sulking. Forget it. It was a pointless argument. Just set it aside. Also, look at the stylish eyebrows. You can tell that shit's styled. Nothing. Madoka understood what that meant.
父さんはなんで12年前この柿内空港に来たんだろう。そしてメモになんでそのことだけを残していたんだろう。毎年ここに来ていろんな資料を見て調べたのに全然そのことがわからない。ただのメモ書きだったんでしょ。それに6月だって言っても12年前と今とじゃ同じはずないじゃない。
I agree if it was like a meeting or some sort. But maybe like something specific happens on the date where a meeting can take place, and maybe she could get some hints off that. Though it sounds like a long shot. Yeah, I agree, Madoka. Tomoe seemed off. Of course, she may have been disappointed after 12 years of striking out. But to Madoka, her sister needed to be more confident and prideful. Otherwise, it would be difficult to get through this without support, wouldn't it? Oh, Madoka just solved the whole ass mystery in before. After seeing that, Madoka pointed her chin toward the slope on the opposite end of the airport, and over there was oppose the relocation of the Kageboushi Airport international flights. Don't take away the jobs of facility workers. The hill was riddled with those placards, probably made by local residents. Yeah, that's a brave take. Oh. Okay, there's a little bit of irony, but I can't really blame people when their jobs close down, man. When it's not even doing bad, it's just that they need some more space. Now, if maybe you can take some jabs at people who just enjoy the protest, you know, who don't even work there. I'm I don't mean to blame the supporters. I mean, actually, never mind. I take that back. I was just saying people were like protested before it came up, and then they're like, oh, whatever. People aren't outraged anymore. And then when they were taken away, they're like, oh, fuck yeah, people are outraged. I'm going out again. But I don't know. Maybe that's not a great take, actually.
そうがないからあるしな。仕方ないわよ。今じゃこの空港で働いている人も多いんだしね。リストラされて生活できなくなったら誰だって困るわ。
True.
むしろ補助金でしょ。せっかくの既得権益を削られるのが嫌なんじゃないの？
Also true if you're looking at the big picture, I guess. Since Madoka had lived in this town longer than Tomoe, she understood the real intentions of the residents. That's why she can't help but feel cynical. Wait, Madoka, right? Holy. The sorrow and anger of being robbed of your dear old house and the land was as clear as day, but before and after the airport installation, the main demand of the local resident citizen movements was a request for subsidies. And many of them didn't use the money to relocate, instead they invested it into renovating their existing homes. And as time went on, the local occupants continued pushing movements for additional subsidies. That supposedly led to delays in the expansion of the airport. Holy shit, this lore drop just literally changed my position. Oh man. What the heck? So it was the people's fault? Now that's the plot twist I wasn't thinking of, man. That's crazy. It's like the opposite of what happened in Hinamizawa. Kinda. Thanks to that, there was no choice but to begin construction of a new airport, which greatly harmed the importance of this airport and caused many people to lose their jobs. How hopeless.
今でもいろいろと水面下で動いているそうよ。政治団体とか噂じゃ大物政治家も絡んでるってことだし。12年前にも公安絡みで似たようなことがあったのかもね。憶測で決めつけても真実は突き止められないわよ。
Okay, we're just spitballing.
それに
She didn't need to hear any more. It was something Madoka realized just by doing a little thinking. So knowing Tomoe and her sharp intuition, she likely already investigated the matter. And she understood that discussing it any further would just be a waste of time.
せめて父さんの13回忌まではなんて頑張ってみたけど結局ダメだった。
Battler pilled?
父さんに叱られちゃうかな。
Thinking about her father's character, Madoka was absolutely sure that wasn't the case. That was who he was. He would have admired her determination to keep trying for 12 years to make peace, so he would never speak ill or look down on her. Of course, Tomoe probably knew that too. That's why she was sad and frustrated.
ま、いいや。お姉ちゃん、もう上がりでしょ。
Big O's waiting for you.
送るわよ。いい。タクシー拾って帰るから。もう、硬いな。
Excuse me, she drove all the way here?
どうせ公用車をプライベートで使うなとか言うんでしょ。それもあるけど、ちょっとね、帰りに寄りたいところがあるの。どこ？
Doto?
歯医者。
Excuse me?
先々週からひどくって。
Cavity? It's not where I thought it was going either, Madoka. The meme music. Madoka stared blankly at Tomoe's blushing face. Come to think of it, she was frowning and rubbing her cheeks a moment ago. No, wait. Looking at it at hindsight, all the times that Tomoe had an upset look on her face since their last fight. In reality, was it all due to a toothache? Jesus. In other words, what Madoka thought Tomoe was so upset about was nothing but a misunderstanding. So they could have been talking to each other like normal all this time instead of engaging in a verbal Cold War.
なんだ、結局私の一人相撲か。
Actually baited. Thinking of it that way, it seemed a little funny. If anything, it was Madoka who'd been the stubborn one.
何よ。別に。お姉ちゃん。歯医者さんまで送るからさ、その前にちょっと付き合ってよ。
Ooh, defensive position? She's ready to punch her out? A few minutes later, Tomoe canceled her dentist appointment and hopped into Madoka's car, then they headed to Kageboushi Station. Dude, I love that song. Anyways, good epi. Good seshi, I should say. That was funny. You know, get a little of the Minai family backstory. Finally making Madoka into a real character is also pretty fun. Oh, there's a tip. Never mind. We're not done yet, baby. Ba 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 ba. Goes kinda hard. But let's continue. Man, they should have called the Anidafuchi Guardian to do their protesting. This ain't how you do it. 1. Necessity of developing a new Chubu International Airport. Chubu International Airport, Kachuchi Airport, is a major gateway to the sky for the Chubu and Tokai regions. It currently serves direct flights to Asia, Europe, and the United States. Excuse me, where's Canada? And it boasts the 5th highest passenger count in Japan. Are we not big enough for you? However, the number of flights has increased due to the recent trend of internationalization. In order to cope with that, there are strict capacity limits on all facilities, including the runways. Unfortunately, efforts to procure the surrounding land necessary to expand the runway have been proven unfruitful due to the opposition campaign led by the local residents. Moreover, maintenance and development of existing facilities have grown difficult due to the year-over-year compensation increases. Actually self-sabotaging. You know, I don't like to shit on people losing their jobs, but this might be like one of the most deserved scenarios I've ever seen. It's just greed. They were greeding for more money for compensation, man. Even though they created so much job output. It's crazy. Human greed ruins it all. Therefore, the most effective strategy for the future industrial development is to build a new large-scale airport in a different area. 2. Elimination of coexistence between military and private facilities. Huh? Since the Air Self-Defense Force base is located adjacent to Kakuchi Airport, SDF aircraft often uses the same runways for military purposes. That is weird. Okay, that's... yeah, I definitely... definitely should split that. I've never even heard of that before. However, due to the difference in performance between civilian and military aircraft, coupled with the increased rate of domestic and international flights, several problems have arisen from the elevated complexity of air traffic control operations. Therefore, in order to prevent or reduce the risk of a major accident, separations of facilities should be established as soon as possible. A fundamental solution for this problem, too, is the construction of a new airport. Excerpt of a white paper from the Civil Aviation Bureau. Fair enough. Actually, that's just lore. Airport lore. Anyways, yeah, great epi. I do love me the 45 to 50 minute epis. I feel like it's perfect time. Voice is still raring to go. Doesn't get over exhausted, but it's not too short either. Anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed. This was a good one. And next time, we'll have to see Tomoe and Madoka meeting Akasaka and Oishi. Should be fun. But until then, see ya.